Oh! Welcome to the Aquarian Shaman broadcast. I'm Star Wolf, your shamanic host, and I'm here to teach you how to transform yourself and transform the world. Twice a month, we'll be exploring how to develop shamanic psycho-spiritual practices to support transformation while expanding your energy field in a way that can also support others. Each episode offers dynamic experiential guidance and teachings on how to safely enter a natural altered state of consciousness using the sacred breath. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of integration and grounding this medicine into your everyday life. Stay tuned. We're about to create authentic, embodied change that will surely grow corn for the future generations. So I want to welcome everyone and so glad to be here. I'm going to go ahead and burn just a little bit of sage and send this out to all of you from the Transformation Network, from Venus Rising, and the Aquarian Shaman. And I'm Star Wolf, and I'm really happy to be with you here again today. So whenever I'm doing any kind of work with people or teaching or sharing, I like to go ahead and burn a little bit of sage, sometimes other herbs, but I especially like sage because it's known to be a cleansing or clearing sort of smell. When you smell it, it feels very cleansing. There's something that goes into the body, goes into our, if you will, into our sensory, of the sense of smell. And it's millennia years old that sage has been used. So it's probably in all of our DNA that when we smell it, it reminds us that it's time to enter in to a deeper consciousness and to open our hearts and to let anything that's in the way of us being who we really are, or that's interfering with what it is we must say or do, we allow that to go into the smoke. And just as we can see the smoke, but then watch it disappear into the other world, we imagine that whatever we're releasing that is not the energy we want to have, that we're letting it go into the smoke. It probably takes a little more effort than the smoke, but that's a good start. And it's also a way like a prayer, really. Smudging is like a prayer. It's visible, if you will, prayer, because we can see our prayers symbolically go up in smoke. And that feels like a holy, holy thing to watch it go into the other world and disappear. So many times, and just to say a little bit more about smudging, if you're not familiar with it, or if it's just something you've kind of been doing but not really understanding it, is that it's used in many traditions, not only in Native American, but all around the world. People have smudged with all kinds of herbs and different energies to release what's either kind of stuck energy or negative energy. So it's symbolic, like I said, because you get to watch it go on fire and transform, transmute, and go into another world. And at the same time, it really has some sort of properties, or so science tells us, that affects our mind and that helps bring a certain quality that feels relaxed and serene and purifying. And so we thank the sage, and we thank all those traditional peoples for millennia who have been clearing the spaces around them, around themselves, around their homes, in places where there have been tragedies. I especially use the sage when I'm having a hard time or when I'm praying for others. I'll say tonight when I smudge, I'm going to remember you in my prayers, and I will send some smoke your way. And people in my circles, they know what that means, or people will write me and say, Star Wolf, will you please include me in your prayers? And they know that that includes the smudge. And as I said, it can be other things besides sage, but sage is one of my favorites, especially the white, beautiful sage. There's a purity about it, and there's something about it that just automatically begins to calm my nervous system. So with that, we also, when we call the the sage to us to do purification, it's also a beautiful ritual to call in the different directions, which I did the very first broadcast. So I'm not going to go on that today because at that time when I said this broadcast over the next year will be open, completely open, the field will be open in my own personal, if you will, medicine room, in my Aquarian shaman room, and here on my land. And I'm wondering sometimes if the land says my humans. I think so, because we do love and tend to her, especially my partner, my beloved Nicholas, who works, and other people who help here on the land too, friends and community members. So we are in that sacred space. We live here in this sacred space on the top of mountains in western North Carolina, about an hour west of Asheville. And we have a retreat center here. And the retreat center here is Venus Rising Association for Transformation. And it's on Dove Mountain with the elemental temples. At those temples, we have a beautiful, huge medicine wheel that takes over one whole piece of the land up there. And each stone weighs over 2,000 pounds. They're put in precisely with a forklift and measured out with help from people who are very helpful, know how to do those sort of things. So I'm noticing that there's a little bit of glitch here, so I'm hoping that that settles out. It's quite cloudy here today, and once in a while, when we get a lot of heavy overcast, sometimes it can create a little bit of a glitching here. So I'm hoping that will clear up soon if that's a problem. So, but we're going to proceed as if it isn't. So burning some more sage there, sending some more energy out, and asking the spirits to support us here into moving the clouds a little bit, breaking up the clouds perhaps, so that we have the good transmission that we want to have. If for some reason that becomes a problem, then we'll figure something else out with that. So anyway, we have smudged. We've asked for any interference to leave. We've asked for only the good energies to come and be with us today. And we've also reignited, like we did the very first time that I came on and did this show and said it would hold us for the year. We've ignited the sacred medicine wheel and called in all directions of east and south and west, north, above, below, and within. We've called all of these energies in to help hold us now during this time. So most of the time, I interview different people. I have people lined up for the whole year, actually. But occasionally, I come on and do a little teaching and a little sharing. That's something that I personally want to share, and I don't want to interfere with somebody else's view by taking up that time. So I want to take the time to share some things with you. And, you know, I always think, oh, well, but now, because I've been doing this for over 40 years, more than likely, most people know who I am if they're here, but perhaps not. So I'd like to share with you a little tidbit today. And I always pray about what is the medicine that will best serve today at this broadcast. And what I came up with is that I really want to share my beginnings. You know, so many people write me of all ages. A lot of times it's younger people who are asking, who are trying to find their way onto this path, medicine path, if you will, or breathwork path, or transformation path, shamanic path. I call them the budding Aquarian shamans, the ones who are probably going to change everything, hopefully, and move it in a good way. But they're reaching out and they're asking me, how have I been on this path for so long? And what does it mean to be an Aquarian shaman? And all those kinds of questions. But it's not just limited to the younger ones. There are many people of all ages and all backgrounds and all genders from all around the world. I hear from people from all around the world and all those different demographics who are asking, like, what about me? Do I have an Aquarian shaman? Do I have, what you're talking about inside of me? Because I feel kind of, that I'm drawn to this, but I don't know if that's something that I have to be somebody really special, or, something has to happen or those kinds of things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I want to speak about my journey and how I found myself here to the Transformation Network broadcasting, to being the president of my own institute, Venus Rising Association for Transformation, and the president of my own university, Venus Rising University. Also, that I have now authored and co-authored 13 books, and I'm frequently a speaker on many interviews, and we just came back from a conference that we've been, I think it was either our 8th or 9th year, at Gathering of the Shamans, which happens every year in May for 4 days. And there's wonderful shamans of all kinds from around the world who present and teach during that time. So we have the opportunity to impact a lot of people during that conference. There's a few hundred people there. And it's a beautiful event in the middle of the desert at Mago Retreat Center. But how did I arrive in that place? Were my parents shamans? Like, did I get hit in the head by a tree? What happened? How did I find my way to this place and the journey that I've been on, this spiral path? And I think that this would be beneficial to all of you who are awakening to your shamanic elemental souls and who are able to understand how deeply, ecologically, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and shamanically we are connected to the elemental world, which is the shamanic world, and how we're equally connected to the great star nations, to the great mystery, and to those perennial wisdoms throughout all time and space that transcend all cultures, all creeds, all races, all dimensions. And so that's where I want to take us today. And so I think it would be kind of fun to share with you, and I brought a picture in here to show you, of me when I was graduating from high school. I was 17 years old. I was graduating from Madisonville, Kentucky, North Hopkins High School. And I started to school when I was 5. So I was graduating at 17. And it's in a double frame because the other photo is my mother when she was graduating at 17. And my mom, who's 93, is now living here in North Carolina, just 10 minutes from here. Seeing her quite often. And she's doing fairly well, but also her mind plays lots of tricks on her these days. And so I won't go into all that right now, but to say that I'm an only child. So I am her primary caretaker, and I see her most days. And we've had a long and winding road, and I love her tremendously, but sometimes it's been rocky in the past. And it's also been perfect, absolutely perfect. She was the perfect mother for me. But it's not about her that much today. Today it's me, and I just want you to see the resemblance between the two of us, but also to just see me at 17. There's me at 17, and there's my mom. Now, I look pretty serious there, but the reality is the 17-year-old girl there, they ask us all to put on this black sweater and a pearl necklace and that sort of thing. You have to understand, this is 1969, 1970. I think the picture was taken in 69 and then graduated in 70. Is that I was shifting from a 16-year-old to a 17-year-old. And I will let you know that in 1969 and 1970, the whole world exploded. And even though as in Western Kentucky, yes, there were hippies there too. And I was one of them. And I kind of became kind of a ringleader, if you will, of hippiedom there, with marching against the war and protest and sit-ins in the lobby and that sort of thing. And I still managed to be, a straight A, B student and all that kind of thing. But the reality, beyond all those kinds of things of what I was doing, what my personality was doing, I was pretty much a hot mess inside. I had a lot of unhealed grief about my grandmother dying, who was more like my mother for me, who nurtured me. And other things that had happened in my life I'm not going into right now, but some major hurts and disappointments that had happened, and the good old family of origin issues that were completely unconscious inside of me, and the shadows that had created in my life. So from that time, from 17 to 18 years old, over the next 10 years, I went out and went to the University of Kentucky and got degrees in counseling and social work over time, and addictions, became an addictions counselor, all those kinds of things. But in the process of doing that, I also married a hippie guy that I fell in love with, and we had a son. And we moved out in the garden to get back to the garden and grow an organic garden and all those kind of things. And on the outside, we looked like a cute little hippie couple who's living in the country, living naturally, growing our garden, me working in mental health, him working in construction, all those kinds of things. But the shadow side and what was underneath all of that is addiction. So, that's one of the things that kind of came with the 60s and 70s, because everything broke open. A lot of people started using and experimenting with a lot of substances, which I did followed along with that while I was in college at the University of Kentucky. And then even after I got married and returned back to my home area, I did not realize that the amount of alcohol and some of the other substances I was partaking in at that time was actually not just by choice, because that really is what differentiates between casual use or recreational use of something or celebratory use, when something becomes more a medicine for you. And when I say medicine, I'm not necessarily talking about good medicine. Becomes addictive before you even know it. And that can happen with anything. It can happen with Netflix, it can happen with sugar, it can happen with caffeine, it can be cigarettes, it can be all kinds of things. You can even get used to just being really negative or pessimistic or fearful. So I say this because I have studied addictions and became an addiction specialist for several years. And I really understand now that addiction is a replacement for self-love and self-esteem. And it's something that we don't know until we go down the path for a long time and then finally realize it becomes insatiable. Addiction is insatiable no matter how much we use, whatever we want to for that fix. It just doesn't, after a period of time, it just stops working, no matter what it is. And we find ourselves irritable and grumpy, and some people call it a dry drunk, unless we're using a substance of some kind or acting out in an addictive way. That's the only way the relief comes. And that causes major soul loss, because you also, on the shadow side, know that something's not right. And in that place, there's a lot of self-judgment. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. I had anxiety out the roof. And there's also a fear deep down that other people are going to discover how out of control you're feeling, or maybe even actions that you're taking out there in the world that would be ashamed of if anybody else knew about those things. So I'm not going to go a whole lot more into the addiction piece, except to say that was full on for me from my adolescence and during that time on the outside, I truly looked pretty good. Like I said, I was working in mental health. I got a degree. I had a child. I was married. I had an organic garden, and people would think, oh, Linda's so sweet, or, oh, what a happy, beautiful family. I was married to this really handsome, sweet Italian guy. My son was doing great in school, all those kind of things. My dog looked happy, those things. And I don't want to discredit that time, because there was a lot of wonderful things that happened during that time. There was a beauty to that life as well, in the garden and with my son and my husband at the time, what I was doing. But at the same time, there was this uneasy feeling and this knowing that something wasn't right. And I didn't really know what it was. And even though I was counseling people at the mental health center, it's easier to counsel other people than it is to counsel yourself. In fact, I think initially it's very difficult to counsel your own self. Maybe once you've received a lot of awareness, if you've done family of origin work and shadow work and addiction work, after a period of time, you can kind of bust yourself lovingly. And if you're really smart, you'll have at least a partner that you love who will bust you lovingly, but truthfully, and also a couple of really good friends. And I always laugh and say, and if I really don't let them bust me, my dogs will. They'll look at me like, really, Mom? Get it together. So over a period of time of about 10 years, so let's say like from about 18 or 19 until I was 29, my first Saturn return, up until that time, I just was trudging along, if you will, trying to be, quote, normal, and I kind of wound down my hippie days. We were still kind of hippies, having the garden and the child and the dogs and social work. But at the same time, I was really, I put on pantyhose, if you all remember those. Those things should be out loud. But anyway, all that kind of thing. And trying to be more sophisticated, more acceptable into the culture at the time in the mainstream. And I just don't think I was born for the mainstream, and that's okay, Although I will say that more and more of the mainstream is winding up, reaching out to us now, because I have a feeling that maybe there's a whole lot of people not really born for what the mainstream presents itself to at this time. Now, during that time, if you will, from the time my grandmother really, when I was 12 years old, passed away unexpectedly, until I was 29. So that's like 17 years, right? So it's like 17 years of feeling really confused and just really didn't know where I was headed or where I was going. I thought I did. I had goals, I set them, I accomplished them, and all those kinds of things. But there was this underlying feeling that something was wrong. And I had a connection to a higher power. I prayed and all those kind of things, felt very close to nature. And yet there was this feeling that something was missing. And it wasn't until I was actually the year, I think it was the before, it was like I was 27 or 28, that I went to a conference because I was working in the mental health. And I went to a conference and I met a woman named Jacqueline Small. And she came up on the stage, and there were several hundred people there in the audience. And she was part of the Texas Alcohol Commission. And she came to speak to drug and alcohol counselors and people who were therapists and things like that. And at that time, I was finishing up a degree, but I was also working in the field. So our professor wanted us to go, so I kind of went, and I was, you guessed it, hungover, because we got there the night before, partied. And when she got up on the stage and she started speaking, I don't know if you've ever had anything like this happen to you before, but immediately I knew her. I recognized her. I understood her, the cadence of her voice, and something went inside of my heart and opened me up. Now, some people tell me that's happened with them, actually quite a few people, when they've listened to me or when they've connected to me. And that brings me the greatest joy, because that's what happened to me. And I credit that moment in time in saving my life. In all honesty, I mean this. Hearing her voice, hearing her talk, and then she did something phenomenal. She took this whole group of people on a Tibetan gong journey. Now, this is like 40 something years ago, 45 or more years ago. Okay. Yeah, it was 45 years ago. And I can tell you, in Western Kentucky, nobody had ever seen a gong before, including me. And she's gonging and she's leading us on this meditation to our higher self. And then having our higher self look back at our lower self, not in a judgmental way, but to see what's causing us trouble in our lives. I have now come to understand that what that really is doing is looking back at our actions and looking at our shadow behaviors that that we don't even know about sometimes. And then we go, oh my God, look what I've been doing and saying. And it's like we wake up and we begin to see the dark side of our personalities. And also, we begin to see where a lot of those things originated from. Some from our families of origin, our culture of origin, our religions of origin, all those kinds of things. So with that meditation, I completely had a meltdown. And it was a great thing. I started crying. Where people kind of look at me on the other side because in this little town, this was a very strange thing she was doing. I'm sure there were many people thought that she was going straight to hell, that she was some sort of Buddhist, whatever. And remember, this is a long time ago. So, and in Western Kentucky, it's a little bit different now. But back then, they would have really poo-pooed this or frowned upon it or been very concerned for people's souls around this. So I, instead of being that way, was like a butterfly or a bee to the honey or to the flower. When it was all over, I went up to be with her afterwards and I spoke with her. And I waited last to be with her because I just wanted to have some time to talk with her. And when I got to her, she put her arms out and she said, "Hello, kindred spirit." And I started crying. She started crying and we hugged. And she welcomed me to come back up to the open house with just the presenters, which was a very strange thing to do, but she did. And when she took me back there to that space, we sat on the couch alone talking amidst all these other people kind of being social butterflies. We're over in the corner talking for probably about an hour. And she just recognized me. She could see right into my soul. And I had a soul retrieval that day by her because she saw me. She saw the light and the dark of me. She knew that I had something inside of me that wanted to come forth to help the world. But first, I needed to help myself. And she said, something you need to know. The best people to help other people in the world are the wounded healers. I'll start crying here because I cried that day. I was so filled with denial and shame and guilt. And here is this beautiful, magnificent, brilliant woman writing books about transformation, transformers, she called it, the therapist of the future. And she's talking with me and she's speaking the language that I've never heard before. And it's going right into my soul and I'm recognizing it's like a foreign language that I know every word and what it means. So to speed things up and to say that I had a huge soul retrieval would be a minor, just, I should say, major disking of what happened that day for me. But the most magnificent thing after that is even then, after she left, went back to Texas, this is in the day of corded phones and writing letters. Ever so often, every month or two, she would write me a letter. She took her time to write me a note or a letter or card and ask me how I was doing. This was life-changing for me. And it made me desire to want to know who she was and to learn what she had to teach. So I'm going to roll forward some years later because it was during that time, and you need to know this, she said, "Get sober and come work with me." And that's without me ever mentioning her that I'd ever have a drink or do anything, but she could feel it. So that's exactly what I did. Her words inspired me. It took a little while, but at 29 years young, I became sober, and I've been sober, walking this sober path from substances, except for chocolate and iced tea occasionally. 29 years old I was. And I've been walking that path now for 43 years, one day at a time. But the amazing miracle is from the day that I stopped. A lot of people struggle. I never struggled. I asked that day for something bigger than me to take away my obsessive compulsive desire for alcohol and sometimes other substances, but mainly alcohol, and to relieve me of my addiction. I completely turned my life and my will over to a higher power, a greater power. And my God, of my understanding, the great mystery, gave me back my soul parts. This is a true story. This is not something I've made up. There are people around me who know this and witnessed this. But immediately I was transformed. And I'm grateful for that. I don't think I could have just trudged along like some people have in their recovery or sobriety. And that's not knocking it. I honor it. But I think I was too far gone. I had to have a miracle of complete death and rebirth. Now, I grew up in the Christian church, so I know that there's a time, when I was a little girl and I got saved, and then you get baptized, and then after you come out of that, you were one creature, and then after you're baptized, you're supposed to be born again and be new. And I'm sure that there was some sort of transformation as a child when that happened, a young girl. But compared to what happened in my sobriety, of that one moment completely still in craving and denial and struggling, and the next moment after asking my higher power to help me and saying, my life is no longer mine, it is yours. Please take me and let my old self die and be transformed, and the rest of my life belongs to you, God. Great mystery, great spirit. And so from that day till now, I have embraced and, if you will, integrated day by day more and more of my soul's purpose. And with that soul's purpose, I have learned to have a tremendous amount of love, quite frankly, for others who struggle. And I have dedicated my entire adult life to assisting others on their path. And for many years, I did that one-on-one, and I also did it in small groups with people or larger groups with people. But then I started writing books, and I've written 13 books, and I'll put this little plug in for this one right now, Aquarian Shaman. Okay. It's just so interesting that I picked it up, and right underneath it was Jackie's book. It's kind of raggedy, but it's Transformers, and that's her on the back. That's my beautiful teacher. Yeah, all those years ago, and she's still around, believe it or not, she's still around. And I talked to her last year on her birthday. Yeah, that's sweet. But anyway, from now until then, or actually from then until now, this has been my path. There's not anything else I have done in the world, quote, to earn your living, or to do your work in the world. What I have done, it's looked different at different times, as I said, with individuals, with groups, with trainings, all kinds of things. But this is what I have done nonstop all these years, and for 43 years. And I am so grateful. I've traveled around the world. I've been to Peru, Africa, Egypt, Bali, Bermuda, the UK, Scotland, all across the United States, and other countries as well. And in all of these places that I've been with people, with small groups, with large groups, with conferences, with training programs, which I've been mainly focused on the past few years, to transform and help teach people, to help transform people's lives in the way Jacqueline helped me and the way some of my other teachers did, and then to help them revive and receive and return their soul parts, and to release the things that they took on perhaps from ancestors, okay, from families of origin, from societies of origin, cultures, religions of origin, whatever it might be, to release those things so that their true essence, their true soul can come shining through. It's truly a major soul retrieval when you step fully onto your path and commit yourself to it, and you know that you can never go back to what you were, nor do you want to. But it's also a very big leap of faith. So with the work that I do in the world today as an Aquarian shaman, my main thrust in life, first of all, for me, is one day at a time myself to be as sober as I can. And that's not just about not using substances. It's about having, as I speak about in the 12-step programs, regaining your sanity. The world could definitely use a lot of that right now to regain, and if you've never had it, to acquire a sense of sanity and what that means. Because I know that all of you who are listening to this, if you're paying any attention to anything out there in the world, you can see and feel and know the insanity out there in the world right now. And I don't want to go into politics at this moment because it's all politics, quite frankly. But each one of us must ask ourselves, if we can't count on the politicians, or if we can't count on the religious teachers out there, or governments, or whatever, if we really can't count on those kinds of things and people to do the work, then perhaps this age of Aquarius that is dawning right now, astrologically, it's what all the astrologers are telling us, it's what the indigenous peoples tell us, that things are breaking apart. It's Plutonian energy, it's Uranian energy. And as all of this breaking apart is happening, as tragic and awful and revealing the shadow of everything, and it's just can be frightening and upsetting and all that, I want to encourage everyone at the same time, while that's happening, to find within yourself just your part. There's nothing else you have to do, really, except to remember who you are and what your part is this time in this current drama. Now, when I say there's nothing else you have to do, well, it's everything. This is everything. You know, we all came here, just like every plant, every tree, every creature, every river, every mountain, every stream, every human. We all came here to be in being, okay, to be who it is we're manifest to be. Every seed has within it exactly, if it has the right conditions to grow into its full essence. Would human beings not be the same? Would we not have that same ability, that same gift, that same destiny to bloom fully into who it is that we are? So whoever's listening to this right now, no matter how badly you feel about yourself or how great you feel about yourself, or maybe if you're feeling kind of lost or confused, especially with the world's politics and everything that's happening, it's important to remember that you never ever get here by mistake. You were all born, as my friend Matthew Fox used to say, my teacher, we're all born in blessing. Everyone is born in blessing. Now, perhaps some of the things that happened to us or our families or how we came through, we may not feel blessed. And at other times we do feel, we can feel grateful for certain families and things and opportunities and the blessings that we have. I have so many things to be grateful for and count my blessings every day. But the reality is, regardless of what kind of easy or rough start you got, we are all born on purpose. Nobody got here by mistake, no matter what anybody else tells you. And we are all born in blessing. And like everything on this planet, we are born with a purpose. Someone's listening to this right now, I know, when they hear this and saying, I don't have a purpose, or what could my purpose be, or I don't think I have a purpose. I promise you, you have a purpose. And sometimes we have to clear out the wreckage of the past. We have to move things out of the way, and we have to open our eyes and our eye differently. And it requires a shamanic death and rebirth. It requires dying to the old. And of course, this is from all religions too. It's dying to the old and being born to the new. And when that happens, the best parts of you that are still there will suddenly start to bloom. It's very much like sometimes I've lifted up a piece of cardboard or something that was outside on the ground, and underneath it were all these plants, kind of little, that had started to sprout, but they were lying on their side, and they were never going to be able to come up until something was, came along and lifted it up. And then within a few hours, they were standing up and already looked an inch higher. And it's the same with us. As soon as we can begin to get out from underneath whatever's pushing us down, it doesn't take long for us to start putting our roots down deeper and standing up straighter and more proudly and allowing ourselves to grow and not even know what we are exactly. You can grow without knowing. Think about being a child. You were growing without, you just, you're a little kid, you're playing, and you were playing like you were Peter Pan or Tinkerbell, or maybe you played like you were an animal or a tree or a famous figure, or character from Disney World or something like that. Whatever it might be, using your imagination. But it's the same thing now. Once you lift off whatever's been weighing you down, whatever kinds of addictions, sometimes it's people, places, and things, okay? But once those things are out of the way, the soul retrieval naturally happens. We reach energetically towards light and towards the life, but we simultaneously do something what? We send our roots deeper into the dark, fertile earth where the nutrients are. And the nutrients, guess what? Are made from your old life. It's not something you leave behind. You're a new creature and you're not living in that old world, but you do not turn your back on that old world, even your own old dysfunctions. People will say to me, well, Star, why even talk about your sobriety? You've been sober for 43 years. There's no, and I'm like, well, for one thing, my sponsor taught me a long, long time ago, those who forget are doomed to repeat. I don't know if that means I would start drinking again or using drugs again or picking up something else, even worse, a way of being. So I don't want to forget my past. I want to be grateful for it. It's medicine. It's medicine. Some medicine is bitter and some is sweet, but it's still medicine. And I'm not ashamed of my past. I'm grateful for it. I'm sorry for those I may have harmed. And in our recovery program, we actually make amends where we can to any we have harmed. But we do not regret having the experiences that we've had because it brings much good now and in the future. So I want to encourage you wherever you are to not feel that you're so lost or you're too old or you're too sick or you're too that you don't have this or that, to not sell yourself a bill of goods, that you're not going to have a useful life, that you're not going to have a sacred purpose. It's really important for you, if you're listening to this, it's really important for you to have someone or something that will inspire you to fully put your feet on your path and to stay on your path and to reclaim who it is you really are and let the things drop away that no longer are serving you or anyone else in the world. This is what true soul return and soul retrieval is about. It's not a fad. It's not a, new age thing. It's not, you all know what I'm talking about. It's not fast food consciousness, and only love and light. This is love, light, and dark, and embodiment, the embodiment of your soul, the embodiment of your spirit. If we're truly going to birth an Aquarian energy in our lives, and what does that mean? Peace, love, harmony, and understanding. Okay? Not overstanding, but understanding, which means we have stood under our own lives, our own journeys, and from our journeys, we teach from our own experience. So don't be afraid, or be afraid if they say, and feel the fear and do it anyway. But find your teachers and find your guides and find your path, but don't be afraid. If you're going to be afraid of anything, be afraid of staying the same, because staying the same is truly the kiss of the true death instead of the death that is about transformation. So when people are talking to you about, have you ever had a soul retrieval? Have you ever had extractions? And they're talking about methods and things like that. I really want to just kind of caution you a little bit around that sort of thing. Because if you're paying attention to the shamanic world out there, there's a lot of kind of spiritual bypass is what I would call it. It's not bad, necessarily, and it's not that people are trying to do anything wrong, but there is a shallowness to it. And to really do the work of the soul takes depth, depth. If you really want to get to higher heights and you want to have something authentic to share with the world, and you want to give a medicine to the world that's going to truly make a difference, you must have depth before you have height. If you have the height first, the roots will be kind of dangly and you will not produce the fruits that you want to in the world. And my teachers taught me this, especially Grandmother Twyla. I always like to bring her up and show her. I told you about Jackie Small. And there's Grandma Twyla with her hand on my head. My Seneca Wolf Clan grandmother. I don't know if you can see her very well there. But anyway, Grandmother Twyla used to say to me, the problem with people is sometimes they get so highfalutin, they're no earthly good. And all she was saying is that sometimes people are afraid. They're afraid or have an ignorance around doing the deep inner work of the soul. How can you have truly soul retrievals without fully doing the inner work? We just came back, as I said before, from Mago, beautiful Mago Retreat Center in the middle of the desert outside of Sedona, with the gathering of the shamans, and many wonderful shamans from all around the world who were there. And I had the opportunity to offer 2 full-on shamanic breathwork journeys for quite a nice-sized group of people, both times. But one of my favorite things I did this time, and I believe this was the second time, it might have been the third time, but they gave me another evening of about 3 hours to be with a group of about 50 or 60 people, because we break out in, several people into different groups. Sometimes people have 20 or 40, but I've had a big group all 3 years in the soul return group. And I have a journey that I call the soul return. And it's a little edgy for me because I never know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm like, I really should write it. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. And I go in and the lights are down, the music is low, and we're sitting in a circle and we do our ceremony and we start working with the energies of everybody's soul in that room. And it's hard to describe, but I will say to you that what happens in that room, I have chills up my spine, is almost unbelievable. And there's people there of all ages, and some people are very seasoned, some people are fairly new to the gathering of the shamans. And while we're there, we bring up the energy for everybody's soul of what they're personally calling back. They may know specifically what it is. They may not know what it is, but they're calling back parts of their soul. And it's palpable. You can feel the energy of their past selves that want to come back, their lost soul parts from other dimensions, places, and realms coming back. And we play this different kind of music that helps stimulate that, the somatic response. And pretty soon, there's not a dry eye in the room. There's so much family of origin stuff, lots of shadow pieces, people feeling like they're letting go of all kinds of things. And at some point, it seems like we always end up standing together in one big, massive hug. And during that time, I'm using a beautiful obsidian blade to symbolically and energetically, the obsidian is used to cut away attachments and things that no longer are needed or that attach themselves in some way. We don't know how that happened, or we do know there was a wounding and it was attachments able to come in. And so then we do a massive moment where each person gets to say, while that blade is moving across their energy field, what is being released and what is being made space for and what's coming back in. And so we're in this big journey for about 3 hours together, 3 or 4 hours. And it's such a swirl of energy, and the lights are turned down and the music is moving. And we're just all of a sudden like one big organism swaying together. Some people are laughing, some people are crying, some are making animal sounds, and then people are speaking and being heard. This is what I'm cutting away, and this is what I'm calling in. And it is so powerful. And just what I'm sharing probably doesn't do it justice, but I will tell you, I have the hairs on my arms are stood up right now, the goosebumps, because it's a beautiful shamanic breathing soul return piece. And at the end of this beautiful choreographed Native American music that we play, it's very haunting. There's not a dry eye in the room, and there's a smile on everyone's face, and we gently turn up the lights, and everybody has spoken their truth for a moment. And we're just weaving together, rocking back and forth in each other's arms. And then gradually the lights come up, and there's a big wolf howl of celebration from the wolf pack tribe. And that's the wolf clan, is the clan that I belong to, the clan of teachers. At the end of that time, people are, you can just see it. There is a light shining out of their faces and out of their eyes. Everybody who was strangers is now friends. There's this loving energy shared by all. It's a big highlight for me. It's, sometimes it's kind of hard when you're in a larger group to have that kind of intimacy. We've managed to do this particular ceremony 3 years now, and I just can't imagine that we won't continue to do it there every year. So for even those who miss out on the shamanic breath work, we do a lot of this intense energy with people, and that's a whole nother story. But this specifically, and since I've been talking about soul retrieval today and recovery and addiction, this is specifically a process that I teach people. And so I know we only have a few moments left, and I want to thank you for listening to me and allowing me to share my story with you, and to really be intimate and vulnerable in that way, and to share with where I am today and what I'm doing. You see that little girl that got sober all those years ago, and the little girl who was a little bit lost in that picture, right? Maybe a lot lost. There's still some days, that we all feel a little lost, especially in the world the way it is right now. But as we reclaim more of ourselves, we can impact others with our own medicine, with how we heal ourselves. It's a little bit hypocritical to be trying to do a lot of work and helping other people when we really haven't made the journey, the shamanic soul journey of recovering our own parts first, and then sharing that with the world. And so I'll just put this out here, for those who are interested in learning how to do soul return, or for shamanic breath work, which is a huge process to create soul return for yourself. We do have a training coming up June 1st through the 14th of this year. There's a couple of spaces left here in the mountains if you'd like to join me and my team. And there's lots of other things coming up. We're going to be making an incredible journey. It's a ways away. It's next May. Of course, we'll be back at Gathering of the Shamans if you'd like to join us there again. But also next year, we'll be going to France to go through initiations with the heart of Magdalene and Yeshua, and with my dear friend and colleague, well-known teacher and leader, Vera Lopez. We co-authored a book on Peru together, and also with my husband and co-leader, Nicholas Wolf, and we are going to have an amazing journey. And there's lots of other things. If you're interested, go to shamanicbreathwork.org, check out our page for our schedule, and we hope to see you somewhere along the way, and we'll also see you again here. So thank you for being on today, and let's take one moment. If everybody's out there, unless you're driving, close your eyes. Take a nice big deep breath. Exhale fully and let go. And the last thing I will say to you is, what we deny in ourselves, hideous or beautiful, destroys us. What we embrace in ourselves, hideous or beautiful, brings us to blossom. This is the age of embracing ourself, for our truest guidance lives within us. This is what the Aquarian Shaman is all about, that our truest guidance is within us. And I hope that this broadcast today has helped you. And thank you for listening and receiving me today. Feel free to write me, to email me, starwolf at shamanicbreathwork.org. And that's also the website, shamanicbreathwork.org. Looking forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, keep breathing. This is Star Wolf, and you've been listening to the Experiential Aquarian Shaman broadcast. Transform yourself, transform the world. Join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio to awaken your inner Aquarian shaman. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to my channel and connect with me on social media at Linda Star Wolf. For more information about my offerings and trainings, visit shamanicbreathwork.org. Thank you for taking this special time to journey with me.